Hello, 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 and welcome back to another edition of Believe in Lions. That's BLEV in Lions, right here on the Believe Network. And it's a very special episode. And of course, every episode is special because we have the all pro safety Glover Quin joining us. But it's even more special because we're going to get to learn a little bit about the game, a little bit about the X's and O's from a guy who led the NFL in interceptions. Who better to break down the X's and O's with some chalk talk? It's the one, it's the only, it's Glover Quin.
Yes, sir. What's up, man?
Not too much, just getting ready for the draft, just enjoying a little bit. It's been a little bit of a lull, and it's kind of been nice because you had mentioned how it gets to the off season and you're ready to rest. And it's not that I've been resting, but it's been like no Detroit Lions news has been coming in since that first wave of free agency. We don't have to sit around and just check Twitter. Is Aaron Rodgers coming? It's nice to not have to worry. It's nice to just enjoy life and not have the rumors of the day weighing on the back of your mind.
Right, man. It's all needed. It's very much needed. Um, you work and put a lot of time into the season and trying to, put these stories out. But you also need some time to just kind of get away from a little bit and kind of get a little relaxation, a little recharge. And yeah, you need that. You need that downtime, that dead time. The Lions made some decent moves in free agency early. They brought my guy Marvin back, so that's probably their DJ Chark replacement. Um, so it's been good. They've had a good off season so far, and now it's just kind of like waiting around for the draft. So I mean, you got 3 more weeks of resting because once the draft get here, now you got the draft storylines. Then you went to OTAs, and you went to mini camps, and then you get a quick little summer break, and then it's gearing up for training camp. So you got to take those little breaks when you can, man.
It's the calm before the storm, it truly feels like. And so, as a former NFL player, what would you be doing right now? Because you're allowed in the facility, but you can't work out with your strength and conditioning coach, correct? It's all self guided workouts.
Oh, I don't really know, because I didn't live in Detroit. So
Okay.
at this time, I was back in Houston just working out. You know what I'm saying? I'd be working out. You're gearing up because off season is going to be starting here. When I was playing, it would be starting within the next week or two. We always started kind of like mid-April, around right after Easter or something like that. If you had a new coach, you started like a week or so early, before 2 weeks, probably 2 weeks before everybody else, because you had a new coach. But most of the time you start around mid-April, somewhere in there. So right now you're kind of doing enough for the ones that, the veteran guys, they're probably just kind of halfway getting back into it, moving around a little bit because they understand that, the off season is where early in the off season is where I kind of recharge, stay active some, but I got to give my body time to recharge. And now they're working out, but they're not in tip top shape right now because they just need to be able to do enough when they get back to the off season with the team that they don't pass out in the first couple workouts. You know what I'm saying? So they're doing some stuff. They're working, getting themselves ready to go. The young guys are probably working really hard, trying to come back at a super high level, be, very impressionable when they get back. But some of the older guys are probably just doing enough to get back in shape, get their body back going. But I mean, they probably took, the Super Bowl was what, mid-February.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they probably took, you know, a month, probably mid-March is like, all right, let me start back kind of, you know what I'm saying, working out. And so, they're probably 3 or 4 weeks in, some of them probably 6 weeks into like some decent work, but it's not summer training yet. It's not gearing up for training camp. You're just doing some stuff, fine tuning some things, getting yourself back going, and knowing that you're going to go into the off-season program with your team where you're going to be lifting and running and really going and getting going, and getting yourself ready for OTAs. And then once that's over with, you get into the summer aspect of it, and that's when you really get into the high level, conditioning and all that stuff, getting ready for training camp. At least that's how it was for me.
And so one, you were off before you get into your real workouts. It wasn't like you were just sitting on the couch, right? You're still training, just not the high intensity. It's not a complete do nothing, right? For that
Well, it
month
just all
after.
depends. It all depends, you know?
Okay.
Some guys, it's a complete do nothing. Like, early in my career, it was a complete do nothing. I didn't really know, but it was like, "Man, I need a break." Because when you play and put that much effort into it and time, sometimes your body needs just about 2 or 3 weeks of just nothing. Like, your body kinda shuts down. It needs to rest, it needs, like, to recover. And so it's a probably a good 2 or 3 weeks of nothing, and then you kinda start back, like, hitting the treadmill, just kinda getting active. A lot of guys will go play basketball. They just kinda get back moving again, and, I mean, if you're in good shape, I mean, you ain't gonna just be bad out of shape in 2 or 3 weeks, you know what I'm saying? You won't be in tip top again, but you can get back there pretty quickly. So, sometimes guys take time off, and then they come back, and so, yeah, could be, especially early in the off season, it's probably few weeks of nothing.
Interesting. And it does make sense though, because sometimes you truly physically plateau. You get to a point where you've worked so hard, you can't get any better physically because your body needs that time to rest, to recover. And so, is there any film watching in that time? Is there any X's and O's, or is it again just complete, just nothing?
I guess I can't speak for everybody else, but for me, nah, I ain't watching no film. No. I'm needing a mental break because I put so much into the season. You know what I'm saying? I tried to be locked in for 16 games, 17 weeks. If we made play, like, I was trying to be locked in and gave it everything that I had. So by the time the end of the season was came, like, I just needed a mental break. So like, what was I watching film on right after the season? Like, nah, bro. I'm mm-mm.
And
And,
that's
like, sometimes, it all depends, right? So, like, I remember a few years where we did make the playoffs, and, we got put out the first round when I was in Detroit and the second round when I was in Houston. And I may continue to work out because sometimes you don't really want to stop cold turkey, right? So I may will continue to, like, work out, tapering myself down all the way up until, like, the Super Bowl, right? And then once the Super Bowl got here, it was like, all right, now the season's over with. Those guys aren't playing either. So then you take your quick 2-week break or something like that, but you've already been kind of tapering it down, right? You've been working out a little bit, but not like a lot, but you've been active, throughout the rest of the playoffs. And then once that's over with, then you take your 2-week vacation and get away and do something, yada, yada, yada. And then once you get back, you probably early March, you know what I'm saying? And you can start working your way back into, working out a little bit, couple days a week. They give you about a month and a half before it's time to report back for OTAs.
interesting. And see, that makes more like I kind of expected you'd take a break from the film side and the mental side. And it's interesting to hear just the different styles of decreasing your load straight after the season, the cold turkey aspect of not working out. It's all very interesting and it's all very high level. When you are at that level of an athlete, it's the intensity is just there for so long. You deserve that break. And then all of a sudden it's time to get back into it. And then it's time to start watching film. And when you have a new coach versus an old coach, is there any difference in terms of getting the playbook, getting the film? How does that all work?
I mean, if you got a new coach, like I said, and I don't really know how they do it nowadays. I know early in my career we used to have actual playbooks, right? Big,
Mhm.
big playbooks. And so we used to always have to turn those playbooks in. So then when you showed up in the off season, they give you a playbook back. So during early in the off season, you don't have a playbook
Hmm.
before, like, right now. They have them because, things happen in the off season, right? You let these guys walk away with these playbooks and then you release them, or, they get traded or this and that. Now this person is going to another team, but they got your playbook. So they make you turn those playbooks in. And then when you come back, they give you playbooks again. But then, and I got in Detroit, they kind of went away from like the big playbooks and went more to like iPads and surfaces and stuff like that. And then they're not giving you those until you show up. You know what I'm saying? So right now, I mean, unless they have some other device or some other system, I don't even know if they are watching film. Like, I don't know where they will watch the film at other than, you know what I'm saying? Like, when you got
Mhm.
your iPads and your Surfaces stuff with the playbooks stuff on it, yes, you have access to that type of film, right? But I don't think they have those right now not until they get back. So it's kind of like a little break.
Very interesting. Very, very interesting. And so when they do come back, it's time to get everything up to speed. And that's kind of what we're looking at today is for the fans, for some of the people in the audience, because you have a knack for breaking down the X's and O's. I mean, you had a whole show on it, the DB room. It was quite successful. And you really helped people understand the game of football because a lot of the time you just hear commentary, too high safety. Well, what's that? Nickel defense, what's that? So we've put it together where we're actually going to be able to break down some of the X's and O's. And the first thing I wanted to ask you about is base versus nickel. I know the difference, but for those out there that don't, what is a nickel defense versus base, and why is there so much more nickel defense and dime? We can go to dime too, I suppose, compared to what it used to be 20 years ago in the NFL.
Well, your base defense is where you're going to have, 4 or 3 D linemen, depending on what you're running, right? So when you say a base defense, you're either a 4-3 team, which means that you have, as you see on the screen, you have 4 defensive linemen and you have 3 linebackers. If you are a 3-4 team, then you have 3 defensive linemen and 4 linebackers, right? So that's your base defense. Once you get into like your nickel packages and your dime packages, now you still gonna have your 4D linemen, but instead of having 3 linebackers, you're only gonna have 2, and you're gonna bring in an extra defensive back, or you're gonna bring in 2 extra defensive backs, right? So when you look at the nickel package, the reason why you're seeing so much nickel package nowadays is because a lot of these offenses are getting away from fullbacks and traditional 2 running back sets, right? So when you got your base defense, they're really in a traditional set, either 21 personnel, which means you got 2 running backs and 1 tight end, or 12 personnel, where you got 1 running back and 1 tight end. So the formation that you see on the screen right now, when you slap, so if you leave it like that, so you see the H, that's the halfback. The F is a fullback, but he's lined up in the slot. So we'll keep him as a fullback just because he's an F, right? So in this formation right here, you got technically 21 personnel, right? So you got the H back, that's the halfback, and then you got the fullback. So those are your 2 backs. So if you move that fullback to the other side of the quarterback, all right, now you got 2 backs in the backfield, even the shotgun formation, and you got a tight end, right? So when you play against teams like the 49ers, where they got like a George Kittle and a Juszczyk at the fullback, right? You can come out in a formation like this, and the team stay, they're in 21 personnel, right? So they put base defense out there, but then all of a sudden you flex out the fullback, and now he's a slot wide receiver. Now you have one of your linebackers trying to cover a running back or a tight end or whoever in that position, because they can easily put Juszczyk in the tight end role to be a blocker and put George Kittle in the slot. And now you got a slot looking 11 personnel formation, but they got linebackers out there. So that's why they go nickel defense. So now that guy that's covering that slot receiver is a defensive back. So if they try to put a tight end there, they got a defensive back guarding him. Most of the time, if you're just looking at this formation, it'll look more like 11 personnel, meaning you got 3 wide receivers, right? Because you only got 1 running back and 1 tight end. When you hear personnels, 21, 12, 11, 10, the first number you hear is the amount of running backs on the field. The second number you hear is the amount of tight ends on the field. So in this situation right here, we're going to make that F a flanker and put him as a wide receiver, right? So now you got the H, who is the halfback. So you got one back, and you got the Y, who is the tight end. So you got one tight end. So that would be 11 personnel. There's only 5 eligible guys, right? You have 5 eligible guys. So if you got one running back, one tight end, that's 2. That means you got 3 other eligible guys, and those are 3 wide receivers, right? So that's called 11 personnel. If you take that F and make him a fullback, okay, like I said earlier, now you got a halfback, that's 1 running back, and you got a fullback, that's 2. So now you got 2 running backs and 1 tight end. So now that's 21 personnel with 5 eligibles. Now you only got 2 wide receivers. So that's just basic stuff. So when you in base like this, you want your big guys out there. You want your linebackers to stop the run. When they bring in the extra wide receiver to go 11 personnel, or you play against those teams like Kansas City where they use their tight end like another wide receiver, then you're going to get a lot of the nickel personnel so that you can have a cover guy that can cover that guy in the slot. And that's why your nickel cornerback has to be a pretty good athlete, because he still has to get into the run game like a linebacker, but he has to be able to cover wide receivers that are real shifty. He has to be able to cover tight ends that are big, and he has to be able to get into the run game. So the nickel position is a very valuable position on a lot of teams, because you're getting a lot of burn, and you are, very important into the whole scheme of things. And so if you went dime, you would just, where you see the W at, the W stands for will linebacker, you would just take him off and it'd be another defensive back. So you can put a D there for dime. And that's just another, depending on how they want to do it, they can make it a safety or they can make it a cornerback, depending on, who they're playing and how they're doing it. If a team is going a bunch of 10 personnel, so like I said, the first number is the running back, the second number is the tight end. So if they go 10, that means they got 1 running back, no tight ends. And if there's 5 eligible, then that means what? The other 4 guys are wide receivers. So that dime is probably a cornerback. If you're playing against a team like Kansas City, and now they're giving you this look right here, you may go dime, but your dime may be a safety because you want him matched up on Travis Kelce, and then you want a nickel matched up on, Juju or somebody, well, used to be in the slot, right? So the dime kind of just depends on who that 4th guy is. Is he a linebacker? Do you want him to be like a safety type, or do you want him to be a corner type? But he's in there to cover somebody. And now when you look at it, you only have 4 defensive linemen and 1 linebacker, right? So if you look at that, that's 5 guys, what you call inside the box, right? You got 5 guys in the box. Well, if you look at the O-line, they got 5 guys, right? They got 5 guys and they got 1 running back. So technically, they got a hat for a hat, right? They got 5 guys in the block, your 5 guys, but they got a guy running the ball as well, right? So a lot of times teams will try to go to something like this if they feel like you're going to stay too high. That's what made Green Bay so successful. That's what can make Patrick Mahomes so successful, because those guys can throw the ball so well that if they start giving you spread looks like this, you still want to keep your 2 safeties high so they can protect you on the deep ball passes. So then that opens up a Claude Edwards-Helaire. That opens up, Eddie Lacy back in the day. That opens up Aaron Jones, some of those guys that played, Joseph Adai back in the days with Indianapolis and guys like that, where you really had to respect that run, that the passing game. So you were willing to go with a light box, right? To stop that, you will roll down a safety, right? You roll down one of those safeties, and now you technically have 6 guys in the box, and they only got 5 blockers. So now you have 1 guy that's called the free hitter. The problem with this is now you can either only go man free, right? Because you only got 1 deep safety. So now you can either only go man to man, cover 1, or you go cover 3. So then when you're playing against these great quarterbacks, that's where they're going to hurt you at, because they know we only got 1 free safety. So we're going to have one-on-one matchups on the outside. because they're either going to be in man-to-man, which is going to be cover one, or they're going to be in cover three. So now they're not going to hand it off to the running back because they don't have numbers. It's 6 against 5, right? So they're going to have an unblocked defender every single time. So they're not going to hand it off. They're going to check to the run. When that safety move back, they're not going to throw it because now they got 5-on-5 with an extra runner. So now they just going to hand it off and they're going to get 7, 8, 10 yards of carry unless somebody on the defensive line make a play.
Great breakdown. And it's so interesting to hear you talk about the importance of the nickel defender in a defense like this, because you spent quite a bit of time as the nickel back with the Houston Texans, not so much with the Detroit. You were more of a safety with Detroit, correct?
Right.
And so the nickel defender here, they're essentially another linebacker when they motion in. But then when it goes to spread, you have to have the full coverage ability of a defensive back because you could be up against Julian Edelman in that slot.
And this is what's so difficult. So if you take that E, right, that's next to the nickel, move him to the outside. Move him out a little bit because he's the edge of the defense, right? Okay, boom. You take that T right there. You can leave him right there. Right there. Okay. And now if you look at this defense right here, okay, if you say starting with the center is one with the X, the square with the X, right? So the gaps in between the center, the one that's next to his left would be the guard, the two guys right next to the center. Those are two guards, right and left guard. And then the two end guys are right and left tackle, right? So the gap in between the center and the guard is called the A gap. Defensively, between a guard and a tackle is the B gap. And between the tackle and generally a tight end is a C gap. And then the outside gap is the D gap, right? So that defensive end is responsible for the edge, right? So if you move that defensive end up to the outside of that, not that one, the other one, move him up to the outside. Just move him upside it. Just move him up like they snapped the ball. So boom, he's there, right? If that tight end or that tackle blocks out, move the tackle to block him out. Now look what you have. You see that big hole right there? So who you think's responsible for that hole?
It would have to be the nickel back, wouldn't it?
The
Because
nickel back.
The middle linebacker's gap is here on the backside.
Well, see, the way they're gonna do it, the way they're gonna block it, that guard right there,
yeah,
he's gonna go up and they call bump that tackle. So he's gonna hit him to give the center time to get over and get an angle on him, and then that guard's gonna work up to the Mike linebacker. Boom, he got the Mike linebacker cut off. So now, if he hand the ball off to the running back, the only person that can make that tackle is the nickel.
Interesting.
So then what happens is when they run the bubble screen and the RPOs and stuff like that, right, where the quarterback is faking it to that running back, the nickel has to make a decision. See, when you walk that safety down and you got another run defender in there, now is no issue because the nickel don't have to leave. The safety fills that gap and he's the unblocked guy. That's why I say you got 6 guys. He's the unblocked guy. He just runs in and make the tackle. But if you stay too high, the nickel has to fill that gap. So you can put the nickel in a real bad run pass conflict because if you hand the ball off, now the nickel got to come make that tackle. If you fake and hand it off and the nickel comes in to try to make that tackle because that's a good running back, that's Derrick Henry, he don't want to get him downhill. That makes the tackle tough. He gets a head start and try to come fill that gap. The quarterback pulls it. Who's covering that wide receiver right there? He throw the bubble screen. He throw the bubble route to that wide receiver. The X goes and block the corner. The nickel is outflanked. The next guy is the safety.
And then he's one-on-one in the alley there. He's
one-on-one in open space with a good wide receiver. So that's the conflict that you have when you get situations like that. That's what made those guys so difficult to defend. The Aaron Rodgers in his primes and the Patrick Mahomes and the Peyton Mannings and the guys that you felt like you needed to keep 2 safeties deep to stop them from throwing for 400 yards.
And so, how do you make those decisions? Because it feels as though, and I could be wrong, with a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes, a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers, or a mobile quarterback like Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen, the defense is always going to be at that disadvantage. You're always ceding ground somewhere. Either you're giving up the deep play by going with one safety, or you're giving up run support by keeping two safeties deep. So is am I right here? Do you truly have to make a decision? Hey, we're weak
Well,
somewhere. Let's
yes, you're going to be weak somewhere. That's why you have to disguise things. That's why you have different calls inside of, your plays. That's why you have scouting reports to understand what teams are trying to do against you. Because the same way that I said, if you move that end back up and that tackle is blocking out, right? Well, you can just make a call as a nickel to tell that defensive end, hey, they expecting you to go outside. Don't go outside this time. You fill the C gap. So now the tackle kicks to block him out, but the defensive end goes to the inside. So once he goes to the inside, now it makes the running back bounce. So now the nickel doesn't have as far to go. He can get in there and make that tackle. But if he keeps bouncing, now instead of the running back going north and south, he's going east and west. He bounced outside the end. He bounced outside the nickel. That gives the safety time to come down. That gives the Mike more space to get over the top of that guard because he's not really working downhill. He's working over the top. And so now he ran 20 yards, but he only gained 3 because he kept bouncing outside and outside and outside. And somebody comes up and make a play. So there's different things that you can do. That's why you have the chess matches of the different calls that you make. Hey, this is what they're expecting. Hey, you can run, you can show a too high look, right? You can show a too high look, and then at the snap of the ball, the nickel can blitz and the safety roll down, right? And now you get an extra defender that's coming in, and then you're getting the safety that's coming down, right? And then that safety, depending on who that slot wide receiver is, that's how you kind of play it. You can't move until the nickel moves, because if you move, now they know you're coming down. So if they know you're coming down, they know the nickel is coming, so they're gonna pick it up. But you can't move until the nickel move. Well, if you know that's Tyreek Hill in the slot, now depending on the scouting report, you may say, well, they never throw the bubble to Tyreek Hill, so I don't have to worry about coming down on the bubble. I got to protect myself deep. If you plan against somebody that they throw the bubble to a lot, you got to say, okay, well, it don't do me any good to stay 15 yards deep, because if they throw this bubble, I don't have a chance to tackle him in space like that. So that's where you play with your alignments. You kind of mix it up a little bit. You show different looks and things like that to kind of disguise what you're doing. And that's where you have the chess matches at.
Well, and this is interesting too because it expands so much for regular listeners of the show. You hear Glover talk all the time. You want every snap to look the exact same on defense. Every single snap, whether it's the same position, whether it's the same foot forward, everything has to look the same because you're at this disadvantage that we've just shown. And so to take back some of that disadvantage, some of those numbers, you must instead play those mind games with the quarterbacks and make sure that they don't know where your weakness is.
Because they know. I mean, when I'm watching film, and for defensive guys, we do the same thing. Like for me as a safety, I'm trying to say, okay, who can I get a good run pass key from? Right? Which one of these old linemen is going to tell me that it's run, and which one is going to tell me that it's pass? So you're sitting there watching in film, trying to figure out, okay, you know what? Every time it's run, this tackle is down in the stands. Every time it's pass, he's standing up ready to kick. And you just watch it over and over and over. And you just see it. Hey, every time it's run, this is what he do. Every time it's pass, this is what he do. And you just study it over and over and over and over until you feel very confident that that's my key. So then you tell your other guys, you tell your people, like, hey, I kind of found a key. Look at this guard. You know what I'm saying? When he's kicked in like this right here, it's been run. When he's kicked out like this, it's pass. And you look at it over and over and over and over and over. And so then when you get in the game, you kind of confirm it. First series, you're like, hey, man, it held up. The guard was kicked in, it was run, he was kicking out, it was passed every single time. So now you kind of know. So as a safety, as a defender, as a linebacker, you're watching those keys. You know, you might see a wide receiver. Hey, man, every time he come out the huddle and he fix his glove, they pass the ball. Every time he come out the huddle and he don't touch his gloves, it's a run play. Cool. You kind of pick up on that. So then you get in the game, you just watching him. He come out the huddle, he fixing his gloves. Oh man, here come a pass play. And they pass the ball. He come out the huddle, he never touches gloves. They run the ball. Okay. Now you got a clue. So you're looking for all types of little things to help give you some kind of clue as to what they're going to do. Well, on the same token, they're doing the same exact thing. They know, hey, every time if he got his right foot up or his outside foot up, he's pushing to the middle as a safety, right? So if you're that free safety right there, you're playing on the right side of the defense, right? So if the F is my right foot and the S is my left foot, if they see, hey, every time his F foot is up, he pushes to the middle, right? He got his outside foot up so he can run to the middle. When he got his S foot up, he's going to the outside, so he's going to the half. So they playing 2 deep when he got his inside foot up. They playing 1 deep when he got his outside foot up. So now that's what the quarterbacks are looking at. They look at you, they see your right foot up. They know, okay, he got his outside foot up. He's probably pushing to the middle. They looking, yep, this look like some kind of road coverage. So now they know we're going to be in cover 3 or cover 1. They see your outside foot. They see your inside foot up. They look, yep, this kind of looks like a cover 2 look. Boom. Now they know you in cover 2 or you're in cover 4 or some kind of 2 high look, right? So they're looking. You know, I was fortunate enough when I first started, when I was young in my career, that I was playing for the Texans. You know, Peyton Manning was playing with the Indianapolis Colts. And I was the nickel backer. And so I had to deal with Peyton twice a year, and he literally used to try to pick at me. Like he would look at me. They would break the huddle, and Peyton would look at me the entire time, just looking at me, because I was a young guy. He could tell from if I was aligned a little farther out, probably was in a cover 4 or in a cover 3 because I had to get hands on the slot. If I was lined a little far inside, it probably was some kind of cover 2 because now I don't have to jam the slot. So he know, hey, in cover 2, he got to fill that gap. In cover 4, he still got to fill that gap. But if he go and fill that gap, there's nobody to get hands on my slot wide receiver. So when I catch him in cover 2, I'm going to give him what he wants. When I catch him in cover 4, I'm going to show him what he has to do, and then I'm going to hit it right behind him. So he get in cover 4. Now he going to look at me. Oh, it's cover 4. Now he going to fake that to Joseph Adai, knowing I got to respect that B gap. And then he going to hit Austin Collie or, you know, T.Y. Hilton right behind you on a seam route because he know the safety is too deep, right? If he see you cheating inside, now he know it's cover 2. So now they just running the seams up the middle. They play fake it to get you to come up a little bit, and they just throwing the seams right behind you. So it was a cat and mouse game every year, twice a year with Peyton Manning, and that's where I learned, hey man, you gotta make everything look the same, because if you make it look any different, the good quarterbacks are gonna see it.
And especially because you mentioned just how small the difference can be. A yard and a half completely tips off the cover 3 versus cover 2. And one final question I did want to ask you here, one that kind of bothers me, it's the mix between zone and man. Because if we all of a sudden bring this wide receiver over here, we've now got 3. We obviously have to adjust here. And on the backside, it's 1 wide receiver and 1 corner. So it's a zone defense, and we can adjust it after the fact, but this essentially becomes man, does it not?
Well, it all depends on what you're playing.
Okay.
It all depends, because if you say this is man, right?
Yeah.
You say this is man. So it all depends. It all depends on what kind of man to man you're playing, right? So if you're playing a too high man, we're gonna put the free safety back in the too high. So if you're playing a too high man, that means the nickel has to go over. The nickel has to go over, right? So now we're playing a too high man to man. Well, most of the time, if you're playing too high man to man, that corner on the backside, he's playing inside leverage and underneath because he got safety help over the top, but he has zero help on the inside. So he has to protect his inside, force him to throw the ball to the sideline, and he has to protect the underneath routes. If they throw it deep, you got a safety back there, right? So if you move the nickel back over and you say you playing a stay cover one type of defense, right? You playing a stay cover one. So now you got the safety roll down, right? So put the F back over to where the nickel's at. So the nickel carries the strength. So far as a defense, it's going to be strong right because the nickel is to the defensive right. So if you got a cover one, you're probably going to roll your safety down to the weak side, right? To the open side. So that's why the safety is rolled down away from the nickel, right? Well, if we don't want to tip our hand because right now they don't know if that's zone, they don't know if it's man. It could be a zone where we just rolling down cover 3 and we got the safety dropping down into the hook area, right? Playing like a middle linebacker. Or it could be cover 1 and the safety has the running back. They don't know. So if the F go in motion and we don't want them to know, now the nickel stays. So when the nickel stay, guess what they think? It must be zone because the nickel didn't run, right? Because most of the time, if the nickel runs, it's man to man. He goes with his man. The nickel doesn't run, so guess what they think? Oh, it's zone. Well, it's not zone because we got Quandre Diggs, who is an ex-nickel, playing that strong safety. So when that guy motions over, Quandre just walks out and he covers that guy man to man, and the nickel just becomes the weak side defender, just like the safety was. So now that corner on the backside can play outside leverage. Why can he play outside leverage? Because all his help is on the inside. He got a nickel safety basically right there in the slant window, in the curl window, in the dig window. Any kind of route that X receiver run to the inside, he should have the nickel guy right there because he's the free guy. If he run a deep post route, he got a free safety in the middle of the field. So now that corner want to play outside leverage and on top because he has inside help in the low area and he has inside help in the high area. See how that works? And now we're playing man to man, but to the defense, to the offense, it could look like zone because the nickel didn't run. And we got a safety that can cover. We got Derwin James. We got a safety that can cover inside wide receiver because now that safety just has to do the same thing. Get outside leverage. He got a Mike linebacker sitting right there next to him, right? He got a safety over the top. I got to protect the corner route. So he shades outside leverage. The guy comes up, he runs a corner route, he runs right to you, he runs a post, he runs to the safety, he runs anything across the middle. If you try to run all the way across the field, you got the nickel hanging out on the backside waiting for him. So we can get away with those matchups. And we don't have to give away what we're doing. But if you have a safety that can't cover, now the nickel has to run over. And then you rotate the safeties. The free safety walks down, and the strong safety just shifts to the middle.
And so it all depends on who you have and what they're
It all depends on who you have.
Because you never want to put someone in a position that they can't do. You can't ask your non-Derwin James type safety to cover Travis Kelce.
Right. So that's why when you have guys like a Tracy Walker and Kirby Joseph, they're kind of the same body types. They can kind of do probably some of the same things. They can both play the free safety. They can both walk down and probably cover a slot. They both can get in the run game. So now we can do a lot of different things because you got a strong safety that can't play the deep middle. When that nickel comes over, that safety has to come down, but he got to come down to the opposite side because now we lost our weak side guy. And if my free safety come down, now the strong safety is in the middle of the field, and he's definitely not a middle field guy, right? So in situations like that, what you have is go back to the beginning, put the nickel back over. In situations like that, when you know your strong safety is not a cover guy, and you playing cover 3, you'll go ahead and walk him down. You go ahead and walk him down. Now he's in the box. So now if the nickel goes over in motion, the safety just go to the other side. They just swap just like that. Boom, boom, just like that. But it also depends on who's the running back. Because if that running back is when you playing teams that has these different guys that they can put in certain situations, right? You have these Austin Eckler's, the receiving type of running back. So you have guys that you have the Christian McCaffreys that you have to respect them out of the backfield. Well, now, hey, I need my safety to be on that running back. I don't want him matched up on my linebacker. So now that safety has to walk down and cover that line, that running back. And so now he's on that side. Put him back over here by the H. So now that Mike got to step out and give that corner some love. Otherwise, that corner is on the island. And see, the Mike know when you look at the gaps, he knows that the strong side A gap is going to be taken by the safety because you got the end on the outside. You got the end on the outside. Yep. You got the tackle in that gap right there. Tackle in that gap. So the other tackle is in this gap right here. Boom. Yep. The end is on the outside. Boom. Yep. So now that safety has the strong side A gap. Boom. And then the Mike has the weak side B gap. Boom. Just like that.
And that's quite a predicament to put the Mike in as a linebacker because you have to be able to get inside to the B here, but you also have to stay outside in case Michael Thomas is running a slant on you, correct?
Yeah, but it's not that difficult because that guy's still playing man-to-man coverage.
Okay.
If you're in zone, yes, because that guy's not. He's playing man-to-man coverage. So if Michael Thomas run a slant, and you're gonna see the 3-step, you're gonna see it. The corner's gonna be on him. The free safety is right there. You know, yeah, he gets 6 yards, but it ain't the end of the world.
Okay. It's living with some of the losses, correct?
Mm-hmm. And then you can still do the same thing, right? That Mike could still give that end the same call that the nickel would have gave him to where the end go inside. Now the Mike don't have to really move. He just getting to the edge. So he really can hang backside if we know it's a guy, if it's a Calvin Johnson back there, and we say, hey, we can't leave the corner inside like that. Boom, kick the end inside. So now you can literally stay right there.
And that way you're covered either way.
Right. But that's why it helps when you got linebackers that can cover, because then I don't have to put a safety down there to cover Christian McCaffrey. My linebacker can cover him, and now my safeties can stay high, and I can roll my free safety down to the backside to give Calvin Johnson help, and the strong safety stay in the middle, and the linebackers can do what they do. That's why it pays to have those guys that are versatile, that can do multiple things. The Fred Warners at linebacker that can cover, they can tackle, they give your defense flexibility as opposed to guys that they can tackle, but they can't cover. So when these offenses start giving you these spread type of looks, it really puts you in a situation where you kind of got to tip your hand because you got to protect certain guys. And you would much rather, make sure everybody is covered up than to leave somebody uncovered or leave somebody in a bad situation just because you're trying not to show them what we're doing. If they know what we're doing, that's fine. We just got to do it better than them. We got to cover better than them on this play because they know we're in man-to-man. We just got to execute better. We got to get pressure from my D-line. Somebody has to step up and help us out because they know what we're in, and they're going to try to come up with their best play to beat what we're in.
It's just so fascinating learning all of this from a guy who's seen it at the highest level, who's done all of this with greats like Quantre Diggs in the locker room, greats like Darius Slay in the locker next to him. So, Glover, thank you so much. I look forward to hopefully continuing to do this, breaking down some chalk talk, getting more in depth. But based on of everything that we've learned today, everything that you've taught all of the listeners, what is kind of the biggest takeaway you want to leave people with, or the key lesson to remember from today's chalk talk?
Well, you know, we started from the basics. So, understanding when you hear an announcer, a commentator, or you hear them talking about personnel, 10 personnel, 11 personnel, all those different things. Remember, the first number you hear is the amount of running backs. The second number you hear is the amount of tight ends. They don't call a number for the wide receivers. There's only 5 guys. So if there's 2 running backs and 1 tight end, then there's 2 wide receivers. If they say 22, that means there's 2 running backs and 2 tight ends. So that means there's only 1 wide receiver, right? So understanding that part of it helps, because then you understand base defense and nickel defense. If they got 2 running backs, you're probably going to be in some kind of base, right? If they got 2 tight ends, you're probably going to be in some kind of base. You're only going to really go to nickel when they got 3 wide receivers, and that's going to be 1 running back, right? Because even if they go 12 personnel, right, depending on who those guys are, because you can go Kansas City and go 12 personnel, right? They can put in another tight end to be a blocker, and Travis Kelce is your slot wide receiver. Do you want your linebacker covering Travis Kelce, or do you want your slot corner covering Travis Kelce, right? So when you hear 1 running back in the game, depending on who those tight ends are, if it's 12 personnel, you may stay in base. Other than that, you're going to be in nickel because they're trying to pass the ball on you. So just understanding those things is a great start to understanding and learning more about football, understanding personnel, and being able to anticipate, oh, they got 4 wide receivers. We should be in some kind of dime defense. Oh, well, we got this guy playing linebacker, so he generally covers that 4th guy because he's a versatile linebacker. So we don't have to go dime defense just because they put 4 wide receivers out there. We can stay in our nickel and be tough against the run and put the pressure on this linebacker who is versatile.
And I think that's a great place to leave it off at. Just so much knowledge passed on. I feel like for all of us out there, you have possibly forgotten more about football than we could ever hope to know. And so just any little bits of information you can share goes a long way. Glover, thank you so much for breaking all of this down. You have any pluggables to plug after that final wrap up of everything that we've learned today? I feel like we're in school almost, and I'm the assistant teacher telling everyone what we've done.
And you know what? And that's how we should be looking at football right now. This is the off season. Yeah, I know there's storylines and there's people moving teams and drafts and all this, but the football fans, this is where you increase your knowledge of the game so that by the time the season starts, you understand it better. And the better you understand the game, the more enjoyable it is to watch. When you know what they're doing, when you know what they're talking about, it's more enjoyable to watch. So, yes, take this time to learn more about the game. Like you said, I used to have a YouTube channel called the DB Room. Those videos are still on there. Those videos are still on there. I know I'm not actively making videos for that channel right now, but those videos are on there. Cover 1, cover 2, cover 3, cover 4. That stuff is on there. And people still watch them. I still get comments all the time, questions in my email all the time from people that still watch those videos. So go and check them out and take this time to increase your knowledge of the game so that by the time the season come around, you understand a little bit more.
Go check out the DB Room. Check out all of Glover's other socials while you're at it. He's got a page for everything, and every single one of them is absolutely fantastic.
I appreciate it, man. I do have a lot of pages. I can't lie to
But
you,
they're
but it's
all
fun.
so good.
It's fun.
They're all so good. It's worth it. You got to follow the entire suite of Glover Quinn.
Yes, follow the entire suite. You can I think I got links on all my regular page where you can kind of get to all of them.
I
But
think
yeah,
I'm pretty sure you do. I think that we're able to redirect from that main page. So make sure you
yeah.
follow along with Glover Quinn. Catch up on the DB room, and you'll have a little bit more knowledge the next time we get together to discuss the Lions and some football. But until then, we will see you next time.
Peace.